Look who's with me tonight, Mr. Dan Willis. I'm very honored and I'm very excited to have a conversation and with you, Dan. Dan, how are you?
I'm excellent, thank you.
So Dan, you've done so many things in your life. I mean, the most impressive was working in the US Navy with level clearance 14. Oh my God, that really calms down everyone when we hear that. And you were a newsman as well. And
well, it's a very long time ago. In 1969, I had to work at the Naval Communication Station in San Francisco. It was the busiest military communication facility on the planet. All the communications, it was like a central hub. So all the messages, secret, top secret, everything went through. And so for my job, I had to have a high level top secret security clearance. I had a top secret crypto 14 extra sensitive material handling security clearance. And we had little color badges and you go into different rooms and things. And in 1969, we didn't have the high technology like we do today with the satellites and everything. And the atmospheric conditions on the teletype and the signals and things like that get gibberish. And the only thing that would make it through is Morse code, that type of thing. And so I was in charge of the code room. And for 2 years, I took messages that had to listen to 9 ship-to-shore circuits, listening for the call letters. And I took thousands of messages. And one came in one day that was from a ship off the coast of Alaska. With the sailors on board the ship, they witnessed coming off port bow of the ship a flying saucer. It's about 70 feet in diameter that was glowing a reddish orange. Ooh. And it went out of the water and then shot straight up into space. And the radar operator on the ship tracked it going over 7,000 miles per hour. This was classified as secret. It was a priority level going to the Chief of Naval Operations in Washington, D.C. I didn't, it seeded my interest way back then. And so over the decades, I wanted to find out more. Obviously, I knew that the Navy was aware of something. I didn't have any idea. I couldn't imagine it being anything that was on Earth. That it must have been extraterrestrial or something. I didn't even have the concept that it could have been German or something else, So over the decades, I, researched, and then in 2001, I was asked to join 20 witnesses, and I found out that they had collected over 500 military intelligence witnesses, and they were going before the mainstream media of the world at this event back here. This happened in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club. And 20 witnesses, each stated their testimony, and then they stated they were willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing. The place was packed. It was the largest event in the history of the National Press Club. 22 cameras in the back row. All the mainstream media was there. Reporters were asking everybody questions. I had a minor testimony compared to what the other witnesses were describing. They were describing bases on the other side of the moon where they saw, domes, mushroom-shaped buildings, that NASA is telling the astronauts to keep secret what happened when they went to the moon, and that they're airbrushing the UFOs out, that nuclear nuclear silos. The UFOs would come over and shut down all of their nuclear weapons. That presidents, CIA directors are all being denied access. That we had back in the 1950s. They were called alien reproduction vehicles, flying saucers that could go over faster than the speed of light. 57 different species had been already categorized by 1989. As you know, there's way more than that. Love your book, Gift from the Stars. And that we had 0-point energy, and that we didn't need to have nuclear, oil, or coal for over 70 years. All these explosive testimonies, myself being an ex-ABC newsman, I thought, my God, how could this not be a world-changing event if the public was aware of all this? At the time, I wasn't even aware of Operation Mockingbird, which was set up by the Nazi SS, essentially. And so what they did was the media sanitized it completely. They made it sound like we wanted to have a congressional hearing on simply the reality of UFOs. After we were on CNN and CBS, ABC, CBS wanted to do a special one-on-one interview with me, and I said, I saw what CNN did with it, and they made it sound like the congressional hearing was simply on reality of UFOs, omitting all of the explosive testimonies. And I said, I have to be able to say we have the scientists that can prove we have a solution to get off of nuclear, oil, and coal. A little 10-second statement. They promised absolutely. They flew down from Los Angeles, interviewed me for 45 minutes. Afterward, the only thing I got to say on CBS was, we've reached a critical time where the truth needs to be revealed to the people. But the truth never got out. The producer said, I know I promised, so I never had this happen before, but the higher executives made me cut that part out. And so it made me aware that the higher executives, which are connected with the intelligence agencies, are keeping solutions that could help our planet. And so it was sometime after that a media company in Hollywood wanted me to write an article, being an ABC newsman and a witness, about the reality, about how the media controls the UFO issue. And so I gladly accepted because I wanted to understand. And so for 2 decades, I've been researching. And you know, when you get incarnated on this planet and you get indoctrinated into the education system, and you watch television, and your perceptions are manipulated to perceive, and you know, you're fed science fiction movies and stuff like that. When you actually see the hidden reality, it's like one oh my God after another. It's like
Goes
the most
beyond.
incredible science fiction movie doesn't even compare, as you are more aware than anybody I know on the planet. That's true,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, the reality, the sci-fi movies, it's nothing compared to reality. What I want to say, the sci-fi movies don't even comes near to what is really happening with all these races. And also this all this industry of sci-fi movies, it's all made to feed the the deep state agenda of trying to depict extraterrestrials as a threat, to scare everyone and prepare an invasion. I don't believe it will happen. What do you think? Random question, wasn't prepared. What do you think about this project of fake alien invasion? What's your idea about that?
Well, one of the witnesses, you know, spoke of Werner von Braun's deathbed testimony,
Yeah.
where he revealed that, and everything's been falling right in line what he was saying. They plan to have in the future a sequence of false flag events. The first was the Soviets, and then there was this was the next one in line was terrorists. This was May of 2001, and everybody knows what happened on September of 2001. And then the next one in line is rogue nations, and everyone's familiar with North Korea and Iran. And then the next two on the line is asteroids. And you know, they have some technology to a fake asteroid.
Oh.
And the last one was, you know, an extraterrestrial invasion. Yeah, there's a number of thoughts on that. One of my witness friends, Mark McCandish, who revealed the alien reproduction vehicles we had back in the 1950s. Last year, he was ruled a suicide because of a shotgun to his head. This happened just 1 week after Mike Tuber, who was an Air Force intelligence specialist, said that that's his testimony regarding the Tic Tac, you know, that they everybody knows about the Navy Tic Tac, was actually made in Lockheed. That can go 24,000 miles per hour and 500 miles per hour in the ocean. It was made in USA. He came out and publicly, this was his testimony 2 years prior. He said, I made the whole thing up. There's nothing to it. It's a psychological test, you know. He made nothing up, very suspiciously, right? And then 1 week, less than a week later, Mark is suicided. And Mark was going to go before the Senate hearing in June of 2021 to testify. And what do both of these testimonies reveal? They reveal that we have already advanced craft that can perform like this. And in the big nothing burger of the report that they give, they stated that, oh, you know, we don't have anything that we know of that can do, you know, such a thing. So it makes me suspicious that if they're trying to make the public believe that we still don't have these advanced technologies. So if you were to pull off a fake alien invasion, it would serve the agenda that the public doesn't know that we have indeed the technology in order to pull it off.
Yeah. But fortunately, this is going around now, and the truth is spreading like very fast about this
Oh, I love
fake.
it. I
Yeah,
love it. Yes.
because we are going to crush down their plan of fake alien invasion, because everybody now starts to know that it's going to be a fake alien invasion, and it's going to go around. It's going around, and I think we are killing it.
I think it's circumvented it. Yes.
Yes. Yes, I think so. I think so, because if they do it now that we know about that, if they really go forward and do it, it will prove more what they are doing, that it will be bad for them, because so.
Speaking of science fiction, you and I were both Star Trek fans.
Yes.
And I was so amazed that the Navy was so involved with that, with Leslie Stevens Jr., who was creator of the Outer Limits, who his father was Admiral Leslie Stevens, who was the contemporary with Admiral Rickleboda, who was working with the Navy spies embedded into the Nazi secret space program. And that the Office of Naval Intelligence was working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds,
yes,
to feed Gene Roddenberry the script for
yes,
Star Trek,
yes,
to seed a future positive timeline of these concepts of a Prime Directive, warp drives, teleportation, all this. And I was absolutely amazed when my good friend Dr. Michael Salla, he was interviewing you on the information that you received from Thorhan on giving him the Prime Directive, and how he found a book that was written for Star Trek, and that the words are almost showing that it is a direct correlation. There's so many different things that have corroborated with the information that you've been given.
Yes, that was very surprise for me when because Dr. Salla, he compartmentalized everything in his researches, which is very professional.
Oh.
So I am going to give him information that other people, like JP, for instance, are going to give him other information, and no one knows that even the existence of others until he makes a video about it, and that's extraordinary. So when I give him information that I receive, he's never telling me, oh, that matches this, that matches that. No, it just says thank you, He asks me questions and says thank you. And then he makes a video and I'm like, oh my God. He's great. He's very great. Professional.
The event that I participated in is what inspired him to get fired from his teaching job at the university, because the university didn't want him to research UFOs. They didn't like that,
Thank you, Dan, and because so, now we have him.
Now he's a great resource, because he's been spending all his time in putting this together. So exopolitics.org, the great resource.
Yes, check this website, exopolitic.org. Yes, Michael Salla is great. And Star Trek, let's talk about it a little. Well, Thorhan confirmed to me quite recently that the nine were not the only source for Gene Roddenberry, that the Galactic Federation had also given him information about the Prime Directive, the Federation, and many other things, the races, all these things. And that matches. So Gene Roddenberry had information coming directly from personnel from the Galactic Federation. Was it by Leslie Stephen IV, or was it directly? I don't know, not yet. But it's very interesting, and it makes sense makes sense. I mean, all the details, the replicators, the teleportation, everything, you know, the Prime Directive. I mean, when Thorhan gave me the Prime Directive, he said he modified the frequency in my device, and that I really hear well, word for word, and it was very very loud, and could really feel the statics was limit for me. And he said, take a pen and write. So I did, and he dictated it to me, and I said, okay, I typed it, and I sent it to Michael. I said, Michael, I just got that. And he was like over the moon. And it's only when he interviewed me that he said that there was this book. And this was amazing, amazing.
I know it totally explains why we haven't been having, why they don't land and interact with us, because it would interfere, although they have in different isolated incidences, but officially come down and interact with us because it would interfere with our we're a stage 2, from what I understand, civilization, and they're at stage, they're intergalactics.
Yes.
And we need to go through the school of hard knocks of learning, it seems like, of getting to where we're at. And right now it seems like we're going through some growing pains right now. And what you were saying is the Nibu had kind of left a lot of sabotaging programs that became activated as they were purged out of our system, which is a wonderful thing. So grateful to the Galactic Federation for clearing us out. And I guess back in 2014, they put up a barrier around our solar system to keep them from, you know, and they're helping us on the moon with building our own star fleet so that we can defend ourselves if they do come back in the future.
Yes, totally. Now that the moon was liberated in February last year, just a year, nearly day for day, the moon now has been used, well, the ancient facilities that were there, especially the Lunar Operative Command, is now used by the Earth Alliance and the Galactic Federation to train soldiers and medics and personnel, and just build ships. And it's a big activity on the moon at the moment. And yes, it's been great. And so, as you were saying, the Nebu have left.
At least the Dark Cabal doesn't have access to their extraterrestrial, assistance of the Nebu and the Sikara Empire any longer. We have to deal with these Earth humans. And it's interesting about the dark spells that they have cast on the planet and the keys and codes that they have to be responsible for unlocking. And they're going to do this before they get banished to through a portal in Antarctica to another galaxy, to a prison planet. And that's the most wonderful thing. I mean, I'm not into the firing squads and the hangings. I think banishing them to another planet so they're gone forever, and allow the Earth to be the beautiful paradise that it was always meant to be, and to purge out these dark elements that have hijacked our planet. I spent 10 years after we had the scientists that were willing to prove, put it before an open congressional hearing, the 0-point energy device. In fact, Dr. Greer in 1996, he met with the CIA director, William Colby, who was going to give him an extraterrestrial derived 0-point energy device along with 50 million in order to get it out to the public. And he was found floating face down in the Potomac River, the CIA director. So that never happened. So and then I had a nightmare of 10 years after they denied the congressional hearing. I volunteered with my technical background, meeting with scientists and inventors around the planet that had claimed over unity devices. And my job was to vet these technologies that they worked. And most of them received what's called a national security order, which says your invention's been deemed to be a detriment to the national security of the United States. You cannot share it with anybody. And there's thousands and thousands. You're talking medical, anti-gravity, free energy. Some of them were, suicided. It's just a horror story. And so I gave up after 10 years. I naively, again, I naively thought that I could facilitate bringing an energy device but they have such a control on it that they won't allow it.
So I'm very happy that you explain this from a personal perspective and experience, because this is what I'm told as well. People ask me why all the med beds, for instance, they're ruled out. They rolled out. Sorry, they are everywhere. It's been set up. But I mean other technologies like free energy, for instance. Why, if the Earth Alliance has it, why don't they roll it out? And I try to explain that we need first to get rid of the baddies, because if we just gave out to the public our free energy technologies, the baddies will take it and make profit, or just cut it, or just take it away, or that's Tesla all over again. We need to wait that the ground is cleared from these bad corporation CEOs and heads and politicians, So we need to do the job now. It's not about waiting that someone give us these technologies. We have them. It's just put aside for the moment, protected from those who we don't want it goes in the hands of, So I'm glad you testify of that as long as these corrupted characters are in control, we cannot release all this technology freely. It would be suicidal. Don't you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've experienced it with incredible genius inventors that ended up with a heart attack when trying to patent it. One inventor I flew down to the Dominican Republic, and there was an energy device that was producing over 500 watts with less than 1 watt going in. And then when I was flying back down with the professor, my job was to schematic blueprint it out and then send it by various carriers in case we get, whacked on the way back, they'd be able to reproduce it. Just before we got there, 2 CIA agents showed up at the inventor's door and said, if this works, you're dead. And so what happens is he completely disassembled the whole thing. That's just one of, you can imagine, 10 years of dealing with these kind of situations where they make very, very sure that nothing gets out. And there's so many stories I could tell about all that.
We know.
It's
so many people.
It's maddening.
Yes. So many people who are targeted like this.
What's so fascinating is we're in this world that we have this other reality that's just on the other side of the curtain, that has medical devices that could extend our life, that could heal any disease. We don't need all these, toxic, polluting technologies. All this is being hidden on the other side, while we have, our education, our media, and everything completely manipulated, centrally controlled, in order to move forward on their agenda and hide this other reality. And people who people don't have the time to research to find out that this is true. A lot of people are just trying to survive on this planet. And so the things that you and I are talking about are, sound like science fiction, but the fact that, there was like over 500 witnesses that were backing this event that happened. I mean, that's a lot of people. And there's more now, but and that helps concrete it in. When you have people that are willing to testify under oath, that's breaking national security oath. That's penalty of perjury if you're lying. And they can't use the rule of law against us, because the group that we're exposing, this illegal operation, is actually illegal in itself, and they cannot cite the rule of law against you. In fact, the whole thing happened because of President Eisenhower, when he had to sign a surrender agreement with the Draco-Nazi alliance back in February of 1955. Ever since that point of surrender, every single president, CIA director, heads of intelligence have been denied access. And it was in 1997 that an event that I participated in that was outside of Area 51, a small group of gathering of researchers, Bob Lazar gave his first time ever to the public, and no recordings were allowed whatsoever, but I recorded. I was sitting in the front row and I had my camcorder going. That event freaked out the base at Area 51, and a NRO classified document told the personnel, to avoid this group at all costs. And on the distribution list was Magi and Cosmic Ops, which are these unacknowledged special access programs that were reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. This document was acquired by Dr. Stephen Greer, and he went with astronaut Edgar Mitchell and Commander Will Miller to a meeting at the Pentagon in 1997 to meet with the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson. This man, in his position of authority, or the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs, would have constitutional authority, if anything. And he was denied access, like all in the past, CIA directors and everything. And he said to Dr. Greer, if you can get your people willing to testify under oath and you have my permission to go before the mainstream media of the world. This group is, quote, illegal. And it turns out that Dr. Greer, way back in '93, was brought into a meeting with President Bill Clinton, wanted to find out about the UFO matter. So he had a CIA director, James Woolsey, look into it. He couldn't get access to it, the CIA director. He tried to exhaust his military intelligence. And so he brought a civilian in. The director for the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, Dr. Stephen Greer, who brought a big stack of papers. The CIA director said, I know the subject's real. I'm just trying to figure out why the hell I can't gain access to it. Yeah. And so Dr. Greer met with military advisors way back in '93, and they decided not to collect like a dozen witnesses, but to go with hundreds of witnesses. And so that's how hundreds of witnesses from '93 all the way up to 2001 were able to be, collected in order to bring this forth to the public, but they control the mainstream media. And so they do what's called a limited hangout. In other words, the part that they hang out is only the safe part. They can't talk about all the explosive testimonies. They can only talk about that we wanted to have a congressional hearing on the reality of UFOs, which, the average person coming home from work, having a beer and everything, they think, oh, that's great. They're, they gathered hundreds of witnesses and they're wanting to have a reality, but there's more important things in the world
decide
than,
if UFOs are
reality
real.
of UFOs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's Eisenhower himself couldn't get into the Area 51. Eisenhower wanted to rescind the agreements that the MJ-12 had made with the Nebu and the Draco reptilians. He couldn't. He couldn't get in. He tried to storm. He was the president. I mean, chief of the armies and everything. He couldn't even get in his own country. Imagine. That's mental. So the president of United States cannot go in, who can? That's amazing. It's terrible. It's
our friend Laura Eisenhower, she was getting flack a long time ago that Eisenhower sold us out, but it wasn't true. He wanted to accept what the Galactic Federation was offering. Yes. And there was a witness that was at the event in February of 1954 that said it was his Gerald Knight. He said it was his conviction that Eisenhower is going to go before radio and television and disclose this to the world in May of 1954. But as you well know, yes. MJ-12 circumvented that. And what happened in May of 1954 instead? The Bilderberg meeting was created by the Nazi SS, which controls the 6 corporations that control everything that we see and hear in the media. Mm. Well, it's interesting. Rockefeller helped get President Eisenhower into office, and they wanted Alan Dulles as the CIA director, which also was MJ-1. And he was, Dr. Salla and I both agree that it was Alan Dulles, MJ-1, who not only wrote the assassination directive against John F. Kennedy, but he was the one that circumvented the Galactic Federation of Worlds offering in 1954.
Interesting.
Yeah, Alan Dulles was infamous for in so many different ways into the whole Nazi infiltration. He was so instrumental.
We could talk hours on this subject, but I wanted to have a conversation more, how to say, higher frequency also with you today about your experience, something you don't always talk about because people are very fascinated to ask you about your all the disclosure and everything. But then there is a big involvement in your life with the science of crystal, and you met Marcel Vogel. So how did you get into this field of research about crystals, please?
I haven't had anything like this happen, for decades. It was just a very unusual year in 1977 that a lady who I was going out with run a metaphysical bookstore. She wanted to do a past life regression on me, and I gladly accepted, but it didn't turn out to be a past life regression. It turned out to be a Kundalini opening experience where I've read about other people had these things. I had millions of volts going through my hands and feet, and with my eyes closed, I went to another planet where I could see the kind of a pinkish skies, and I went underground, and there was a being with a large head that was and she was very psychic, and she says, he's this to show you something. So this is kind of like a teaching experience. I have limited Photoshop skills, but I made a little graphic I could share if you wish.
Please.
And let's see, share screen.
Yes.
Okay. Now, keep in mind, this being was, the thing that was profound about it was his eyes were incredibly loving. It was incredible love coming from its eyes. And I had this to put it mildly, I had this intense energy going through my whole body. It's as though they were trying to bring my level up and for them to be able to communicate. And as I observed this being projected the sphere in space, and as I watched the sphere, the first thing that formed in it was a star tetrahedron type of configuration. Now, this is my Photoshop, I'm trying to recreate it, but it was like one geometry going into another, and into infinity, and then it turned back into a perfect sphere. And the thing that was most unusual about this, like most high school kids, take geometry and things, I had no idea of what platonic solids were, or I had no idea of sacred geometry in 1977. And so this was all incredibly fascinating to me. And what the being was, I don't know if this was just symbolic teaching or if it was actually based on science at the time. But what the being was saying is that each of us are like a sphere that contained all the harmonics of all the vibrations, and that at any particular level, probably something to do with our DNA, we're resonating on a particular frequency, and through love, we evolve from one geometry frequency on into the next, like kind of going from 3D to 5D. And so over the years, I tried to grab every book I could on geometry back in 1977. I had to import books from England. There wasn't a whole lot back then, but as I was like, oh my God, that's it. That's what the being conveyed. It was quite fascinating. And so as one fits into the other, like in a matrix, in this matrix, all these different geometries can fit within. And Nassim Haramein did this thing on a 64 tetrahedral grid. And if you look at it, project it into a flat, it comes out with the flower of life. And in the cymatics, all matter is nothing but oscillation, but the oscillations create standing wave patterns that give the illusion of physicality of a solid. And then as I researched, I found that the whole atomic table of elements are all based on this tetrahedral geometry, and our DNA, and the golden mean ratios in our DNA, and even the amino acids are in this dodecahedral configuration, our bodies and nature. And that what's really fascinating is that all the planetary bodies of our body and the Saturn, Moon, Earth, the Sun, they all have this star tetrahedral at this 19.45 degree angle at the tips. And the Russians discovered this icosahedron and dodecahedron grid work that's on our planet. So it shows that there's this geometrical structure in the planets that are this energy resonance on these different geometries. And even the planetary orbits have this geometry. Also, what's fascinating is the entire scale of the universe, from the Schwarzschild proton to the atom to the galaxy to the entire universe. It's like a fractal. It's like this relationship that's fractal and goes into infinity. And people are familiar with Dr. Emoto's work, where the matrix, which is tetrahedral and hexagonal, just like water is universally resonant. The fundamental is love, you could say. That's why the structuring happens when you're aligned with that way versus hate and fear. And what's fascinating about water, which is one of the key things we're working in the laboratory, is that within water, all 7 major crystallographic forms form in water, which shows that water, the structure of it, is universally resonant to resonate with everything. Just like quartz. Quartz has this hexagonal tetrahedral geometry in it that has a this lattice structure, and all the facets of a crystal are at 52-degree angles. And just like the Great Pyramid in Egypt, which if you look at if you look at the 52-degree angle, what comes out is the golden mean, which shows that it's a geometry that resonates into infinity. Golden mean ratio along with pi are the mathematics that go into infinity. And we found that in the laboratory that water has a common bonding angle of 26 degrees. 2 times 26 is 52. And the intermolecular bonding angle is 104.5. Half of that is 52 degrees. So there's a angular harmonic relationship that, just like in Marcel used to say, the sciences that we're studying are akin to those that we know in normal physics. In other words, in electromagnetics energies, if you have something oscillating at 5 megahertz, you're going to have something at 10 megahertz, 15 megahertz. You're going to have harmonics or octaves from, and in radionics, which is what I worked on with him on this camera, was that you can tune to everything in the universe within a 360-degree circle. And in this camera, there was tuning available, and it could even tune backwards and forwards in the time. And another interesting experience I had was in 1977 was, these I just grabbed. This is my Photoshop. These are not accurate,
May I interrupt you just a second? The first being you tried to I want to see the rest, but the first being you showed that you tried to recompose on Photoshop, it struck me. I recognize, maybe it's not them, but to me it's an emerther from Tau City. It's an emerther. They do that. They do a lot of geometry. They leave geometry messages. They are telepathic. They are very loving beings. But the face, and I went, oh my God, that's an emerther. And they are from Tau City. Tau or Tau City. It's a star system. Anyway, so I just want to say that.
You mean I may have, out of searching for an extraterrestrial image, I may have picked the correct one. The other beings that were
please continue.
The other beings that were little guys, they were childlike. They were like playful, childlike, but they were like wise old men. I remember that feeling. I didn't even know what a gray was back then, 1970. This was all new to me. Keep that in mind. And here's what happened. This being who was kind of in charge of whatever was going on came up to a console and started adjusting this dial or something. And then I started experiencing this spinning sensation. And it was as though, the only way I could describe it is somebody put a big motor on your chair, and they had a rheostat where they would increase the speed, and you would increase it faster and faster and faster. And it was so fast that I couldn't handle it. I remember at one point I just said, I can't handle this. I turned this over to my higher self, my higher aspect. And at that point, it seems as though I went through a portal, and I was kind of teleported or something into this beautiful, I mean, it was like this exalted, it was like they took me from 3D to 5D or something, where it was this beautiful reality. It was like this spring mountainside. There was this beautiful flute music playing in the background, and I can't even put into words the exalted, euphoric feeling that I was experiencing. But it was so beautiful. But as I started to observe this reality, it started to pulsate and flicker. It started to pulsate. And as though I could start, it was like I was, the next thing I knew, I was like in a, it was teaching me something, I imagine.
Yeah.
I was looking at the reality on a screen, and as though I could see in between the pulses of creation. It's like I was lifted up to a frequency that was so high that I could see in between the pulses, if that makes sense,
Yes.
of
Yes.
creation. Is when you see something, you recognize it, and by recognizing it, you create it, and by creating it, you recreate it again. And it's as though like a 60 cycle neon light. It looks like it's solid on, but it's going off and on 60 times a second, and your eye can only discern 30 times a second. So it looks like it's solid, and that's the best analogy I can think of. So it was like the frames of reality were being projected.
Projected
And
reality. Yeah.
I kind of humorously said, okay, what's the name of this movie? And it wrote in beautiful script across the screen, A Journey of a Mystic. And I was still in this exalted state, and I thought, oh my God, I knew my body was back on the bed, and that I bet I could open my eyes and keep this state of consciousness. And I did. And I opened my eyes, and it was it lasted for at least a half hour, 45 minutes, but it was like I was looking at the world like through the eyes of a child. I was like fascinated with everything. But eventually the world started to seep back in. You have to go to work and pay bills and all that stuff. This Russian painting reminded me of that experience. There was one more experience that was kind of interesting, that in 1977, all of these things happened that one year. Nothing, crickets since then. Nothing's happened since then. But I was up in the mountains and outside of San Diego, way up on a mountaintop, and it was at night, and I was collecting some firewood, and out of the sky, I felt this intelligence, and it was so strong that I reached my hand out and I said, is somebody out there? And a star came down, scintillating different colors and going bobbing up and down like a yes. And so those were the those were the three things that happened. And then I eventually this experience led me into a research work with Dr. Marcel Vogel, because he was the only scientist on the planet. Quartz crystals, they, throughout time, different cultures, and over time, they have this attributes, spiritual attributes to it, but we don't have the science behind it, but we have all the folklore, right?
Yeah.
And we know it's a science of the future that we'll understand more. And it seemed to be a key, understanding the the geometry of the crystals, to understand the matrix that we are in. And so I heard of his work, that what happened was he was working for IBM, and he had to give a creativity course to these engineers. And so we heard about Cleve Baxter, and polygraph expert that was hooking up plants to a script chart recorder. And he thought, well, this might be a good thing for the engineer. He had 30 engineers he had to teach. He was an incredible genius. He had hundreds of patents. He developed the red and blue phosphors for color television, magnetic coating for hard drives, liquid crystals. I mean, he was an incredible genius. He thought, oh, initially crumpled it up and threw it in the trash, but then he thought, no, this could be a good experiment. So he hooked up in the laboratory, his split leaf philodendron, and then he went to burn the leaf, and the script chart went like that. And then as soon as the thought formed in his mind to do it again, the moment it formed in the mind, the chart went, and that squiggle changed his life, he said. And so he was able to do it with his associate in the laboratory from 7 miles away. And he could psychically tune into the plant and make it squiggle. And then he went all the way on the other side of the planet to Czechoslovakia, and he tuned into the plant and made it squiggle. So you know, the inverse square law of distance doesn't matter. It's instantaneous in mind, the connection. And so he was doing a talk about plants. He was written up in the book, The Secret Life of Plants. And this woman gave him a crystal, and he thought, oh, this is woo-woo stuff. But when he was working with plants, he was working with his breath. He studied pranayama yoga and found that when he pulsed his breath, he got a much bigger reaction. And we were able to substantiate this in the laboratory using a spectrophotometer where he would pulse a little vial of water, and then you could measure the energy bands afterward, and you could erase it afterward. And so it shows that the water is recording the energy of mind. But so anyway, make a long story short, he was able to heal one of his coworkers at IBM with a crystal, and then he had a dream how to make the crystal more effective. And so he had a dream, and in the dream he saw the tree of life, where you have the unmanifest, and then it comes down into the manifest world. And so what he made was a crystal like this. It started out with 4 sides, and so anyway, I drove up there in the middle of a storm, knocked on his door, and sat with a doctor on a couch, and he turned off the lights for half an hour, played some beautiful classical music. And then I said to him, I'm fascinated. I want to find out about your work, what you're doing. And curiously, he said, you're from another planet, aren't you? And I said, no, I don't know about that. But a knock came on the door. This woman had a daughter. They heard about he was working with 24 medical doctors. I was sitting with one of them, and she had a tumor that was sticking out about 3/4 of an inch on her ankle. And using his procedure with, because the crystal couples multiple dimensions, as you know, and our physical body is formed. And so with the breath, which is very connected with our intention and everything, he used the procedure, and before our eyes, it dematerialized the tumor in front of us, and that left a lasting impression. And then he invited me to be a research associate with him. And so I drove all the way from San Diego to Arkansas, and I got him a whole bunch of crystals, for all these doctors.
Yes. Arkansas is known for the quartz.
And so one of the projects that I worked on was a camera that could tune through time. When I saw you were with Alex Collier with Marilee, and Alex was describing how the Andromedas say they take a holographic picture, and in that hologram, it goes all the way back to your conception, but they can take out through time. They can take out the different aspects of when each part of the body was optimal and integrate that into one new hologram, and they overlay that onto the physical body, and then it heals the body and age regresses you back to that time. And I was listening to that and I said, oh my God, that is what I worked on. And let's see, I have just brief, I won't go too much into all this, but
what Alex was explaining, just that you replace the hologram, which is the structure of the matter, and the biology, and the cells will be drawn to reorganize to the new holographic structure. And that's
exactly.
Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah. Please.
Randy Kramer had a way of describing, he called it the dominant harmonic frequency, which makes sense. You know, it's
yes,
the one
yes, you change it.
has the strongest signal that, and I heard that some of the med beds people lay in water. Now that makes perfect sense to me, because water is you too? Is that what happened with you?
Yeah. I laid on water, and I had a tumor in my belly, and they made me lay on a glass. I was in a med bed, and they lay me down on a glass like long thing, and I was in kind of an egg stuff anyway, and under the glass it was water, and I asked what this liquid was, and the lady said, oh, it's water, and they shot frequencies through the water to destroy and the tumor was gone. It lasts maybe an hour, and they were shooting through water from like kind of small cannons underneath the bed. I couldn't see it very well, you know. I can't describe. Water.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Through it.
You know, when they dug down in Antarctica,
sound.
You know, when they do these ice core samples down deep in Antarctica, they found in these ice core samples all of the major geometries, you know, showing that it is universally resonant. So water is the perfect medium in order to form all, and no wonder they look for water on other planets for signs of life, because water is the most essential building block, because it's universally resonant to all geometries. I'll just go briefly on this here with. So this is Dr. Vogel in his laboratory. He built his electron microscope, and you know, and the quartz crystals, one side's female, one side's male, and it acts like a laser. Where it reflects back and forth, and the energy spirals down the axis and it acts as a multi-dimensional coupling device that amplifies the intention. Now this camera that was patent in Paris, France back in 1955, they made thousands of photographs. This is a 1955 picture of it. And this is a woman that was 50 miles away, that they tuned into the fetus in her, and they were able to move it backwards and forwards into time and show the different levels of the progression of the baby within her.
How did they do that? Sorry, I just question. How did they tune in with her at distance?
Yeah, I'll show you.
Okay, great. I'm so excited.
So this was patented. You don't get a patent unless it works, and thousands of photographs were made. And now you could read this in French, but I can't.
Okay.
But what this camera established was that, and the camera wouldn't work unless this was true. It established a single drop of blood from the DNA frequency of an individual is entangled regardless of time and space, and is a fractal representation of the holographic whole of that individual. In other words, you know, you could take your hair or fingernail clipping or any part of your body, and within that part of body is the hologram of all of you.
It works in magic with the spell. Throwing a spell, you need a fingernail or a hair or a drop of blood. Yeah, that makes sense. It's quantum.
Blood usually works really well. Sound and light, which is what the camera used. It used sound and light, and which is what Alex Collier was saying the Andromedas were doing. And can be used as a vehicle to recreate this holographic pattern. And that time is a tunable vector within the magnetic spectrum, and that spectrum within the hologram has a place in itself for events in time, and that any aspect of the individual can be resonated through, I call it angular harmonic resonance, utilizing radionic tuning dials. And Delaware himself said that time is a vector of the magnetic spectrum, and that spectrum has a place in itself for events. In other words, the events through time. There is a pre-physical world in which the camera might expect to operate, which it does. And everyone's familiar with holograms, and what a hologram is oscillating patterns that are like standing waves, and it creates the illusion of something physical that you can look at in 3D. And a laser, how a laser works is that you split the beam in the two beams. One hits the object, the other one is not hitting the object, but the difference of the phase angle between the two creates the illusion of a projected 3D image. And this is what the camera, this is from the patent. Now the red and so forth are my notes on that, where the subject is one, the operator, which is key, as you know, with these type devices, and the earth alignment. And what happens is there's sound oscillators in this, and the sound in the resonating cavities that are tuned carry the information that is projected into a hologram that are reflected by these reflectors. Here is some actual pictures I took of the camera when I was working on it. You can see these are the sound resonators, and you'll find it interesting to know that the dimensions on some of the cavities were that of the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. And so they're using the harmonics of the sound. And these dials, beautifully machined out of brass, were the radionic tuning dials that tuned into the fetus specifically of the person. And this is the time spiral that allowed it to move forwards and backwards in the time. This is the upper chamber, which was light tight, which the film was, the silver emulsion in the film would pick up just a slice of this three-dimensional hologram that was being projected in space. Journal of Theoretics, they did a computer analysis of the image, and they found that in the picture there was actually three-dimensional information that was contained in the image that shows that it was a hologram that was being projected in space, and we were only capturing a slice of that. Now, my job, this was 1950s electronics, and I worked with Naval Electronic Engineering Center for many years and all the electronic stuff and everything. So I was putting 1980s at the time technology in order to make it, because every time you have to take a photo, you have to take a new film and develop it, and it's a tedious process. We were trying to make it so that you could view the hologram real time on a video display. And so that's what my job was. Since I had experience with radionic equipment and electronics, I was attempting to understand these fundamentals and incorporate 1980s electronics into making it functional. And so that was the project I worked on back in the early 1980s.
Wow. So yeah, the premises of the med beds, in fact, in a way as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it was able to tune into the hologram through time, just like Alex was describing. And it wouldn't have received a patent, and it wouldn't have done thousands of photographs unless, it actually worked.
Yeah, yeah. What became of these researchers? Is it?
The camera disappeared. Marcel had a heart attack, unfortunately. Yeah. I had to continue on with my life, and so unfortunately. But what's sad is we don't have to reinvent the wheel. They have already. Yes. We have cultures that are thousands or millions of years in advance that have got this down to a very fine science, where this, what I worked on, was extremely primitive, but it established the fundamentals of what Alex was describing.
Yes, and when I was I had the opportunity to try this med bed in France, it was in year 2000. It was January 2000. So it was already there, and it was experimental, and it was coming from the States. So this in year 2000, this technology was already being tried, and I had to sign as I was a guinea pig, and I consent to be in a medical experiment. But it's here now. It's been rolled out secretly, bit everywhere, and when things go better, I suppose it will be, free for everyone. I arrived in the morning, I left in the afternoon. It's very quick. It's amazing how fast it is,
And incredible. They were using it as a you said they disappeared afterward.
Yes. Oh my God, it was a
hospital,
private
yeah.
clinic. It was a private clinic, and I tried to find it. Not even the name is on Google. Nothing. Gone.
Oh.
But
Just imagine.
yeah, but yeah.
My great grandfather was the president of the Homeopathic Medical Society that was using natural medicine, homeopathy, and things like that. Was Rockefellers were shutting all these people down back in the early 1920s and things, and the corrupted medical system that's driven by money. Just imagine if we have these medical centers where people were the operators were compensated in whatever way, but nothing's all done for profit, where people can be healed of diseases. So there's not this suffering. There's so much suffering on this planet that's completely needless.
Yes. I have a question. You saw Marcel Vogel healing people with just a crystal and his bare hands. Could you be, because I have one and I'm very curious.
Oh yeah, that's a nice one.
Thank you.
Huge.
I know you can project energy, the energy of your body, throughout the crystal and point it like a laser. But how did Marcel Vogel use crystals for healing?
Oh, I would be delighted to show you. He trained me. Yes, and when he for getting all the crystals, he cut this one as a gift for me. It was one of the first ones. They started with a 4-sided. Now the number of sides, they increased. This is like an 8-sided, and so what it does is the more sides, it looks like you may have a
12, I think.
8 or 12-sided. Looks like maybe
12. I think it's 12.
It looks like a 12-sided. So the more sides creates more of a spin, because the energy, crystals grow in a spiral. They grow in a vortex. And that's why crystals in nature, they are left to right-hand spirals. And so the energy vortexes through a crystal right down they call it the C-axis or growth axis. This is a little 16-sided. And so when he gave me that first crystal I had as a gift, I was flying back to San Diego, and this football player just had surgery on his knee, and he was holding it in pain, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I've been given a gift, and I've given the knowledge of how to use it. I should do something. I introduced myself that I'm not a doctor. I'm kind of an experimental scientist, and if he would like, I'd try some unusual techniques on him. And so we went through the procedure, and he got off the plane, and he was pointing from his parents and said, that guy, he cured my leg. It doesn't hurt anymore, but I just facilitated him in healing himself. So I will go through this briefly. because there's a lot of elements to it, okay? But the first thing you do is you want to activate the crystal, and you want to connect it to you. You want to become one with the crystal. And how you do that is you take a deep breath, hold the crystal like this, and pulse your breath like that. It starts the crystal. You can rotate another angle and do it. But a lot of these procedures are mutable, as you know, according to
shamanic. Yeah.
There's not such a rigidness. Once you understand the fundamental principles, you can make up your own procedure, as you well know. We're creative beings. So what the main thing is to connect with the crystal. And what he did was you rotate it in your hand, and you build a charge in it, and kind of squeeze and rotate and become one with the crystal. Make it an extension of yourself. All right.
I can notice when I send my breath, it's like I send a piece of myself in it. Is that what you?
Yeah, it's what he discovered when he was doing with the plants, is that he discovered that when the pulse the breath, almost like how martial arts,
yes,
like
the key.
There's this pulse of energy that happens, and that pulse of energy, he was able to measure it in the laboratory. You can measure it, and the spectrophotometer, we were able to go like that. You don't
I understand it. Yes,
but you pulse the breath and you get an effect. So and so you rotate the crystal and build a charge, and then if you're working on someone, what he found was there was this critical rotational angle where you go into the person's energetic field and you rotate the crystal, and at a particular angle, actually you can do it to resonate with yourself. You rotate the crystal, and there's an angle in which you'll feel it will kind of, it's hard to describe. It's like experience. You do it, but as you rotate it, there's a point in which you come in resonance with the other person, or you can experiment doing that on yourself.
You mean rotate like this?
No,
or like this?
like this, like tuning a radio dial.
Okay.
Like tuning a.
Thank you.
And once you do that with a person, I'll make this short and simple. Once you attune into that, and a lot of times you tune into the thymus area up here, when you're going into a person's energy field, is one way to do it. And you have the person doing deep breathing. Breathing is important. Breath is, as you know, much more than just taking in oxygen. We're drawing in information, and we're transmitting information when you exhale. And so as you build up the energy, you can build up the energy in your body through breath. And as you inhale and exhale, build up the energy in the person, and you ask the person to go in, ask and you shall receive, to say they have an injury, or there's something's bothering them in their body, it's hurting them. Ask them to go into their mind's eye and to be shown the root cause of where the pain is. See the very core of where the problem, and don't judge how the information comes back. It can come back as an emotion, a geometry, a color, or whatever. Once you have that, you inhale and exhale, breathe in and out, and then usually on the third deep breath, you work with the person in synchrony with them, and then you have them, when they inhale, at the top of the inhale, you have them lock on to that core where the problem is. And then it's all happens simultaneously. The person, and you say release, and the person releases, and like that. And you're doing this at the same time you're pulling it out with them, but you immediately bring back in the energy of love. Love integrates the energy field back again. And I've seen amazing things happen, you know, with amazing transformation. Like, oh, it's gone. Or or sometimes you see physical effects happen, you know. So anyway, that's kind of like a very brief of the procedure using breath with the crystal in a particular technique that is used with that, and you're facilitating the person essentially healing themselves.
Yeah, so it's a resonance, and you help the person activate the flux of energy inside to really fix the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, because as you know, from our soul, our three-dimensional body is being formed. And at the higher dimensional levels, of which the crystal couples all these dimensions at once, it's universally resonant. And so it acts as a multi-dimensional coupler, I guess you could say, that is able to go in, not at the 3D level, but at the higher formative level, because when you pull out the distortion at the higher level, the 3D level, poof, disappears.
It's like if you work on the hologram, the holographic higher frequency of the structure of the body, and then the physical, biological 3D body just adapts. Is that it?
Yeah, you know, I bet that the med beds use crystals. You know, in Stanford University, they were able to primitively, of course, project in 3D the Mona Lisa into a crystal lattice structure. And that's very primitive. I imagine that the med beds, when they take a so-called picture of somebody, a hologram of somebody, that the crystal lattice structure goes into infinity, and it is universally resonant, and so it can hold the entirety of a person's hologram within the crystal and then be replayed again. I'm speculating. You know, it seems like that would make sense to me, that that the only thing that could really store that type of information would seem to be a crystal lattice structure.
That is very interesting, because crystal can store a lot of things, and I was told they can store also the universal life force. They can be like batteries, you know. And
sure.
What do you? Please.
Go ahead.
No. I was going to ask a question, so please.
Well, you know, it's interesting. The structure is hexagonal, which means it's like a six-pointed star. Pythagoras used to call the six-pointed star with a dot in the center the star of creation. In other words, at the center of between the male and female, or the opposites of the triad, you have the center point of the creation. And in a crystal, the charge triads of the one triangle into the other, when you squeeze a crystal, it creates thousands of volts, you know, when you really squeeze it hard. You know, it's a piezoelectric effect, you know, because what it's doing is trillions of these charge triads are being offset, and so it causes a voltage. And that's how they use crystals and radio transmitters and everything, because they can oscillate by putting a little bit of an electrical charge on it. It causes a physical vibration. Marcel worked on from Michael Hedges' skull. It was a crystal skull, and he believed that this crystal skull, the older adept, when he reached his age that he was going to transpire, he would transfer all his knowledge into the crystal skull so that the young neophyte could transfer from the crystal skull into the young initiate. That was his belief in that. He also worked on a crystal that came from Atlantis. Then I knew the doctor that got this, and it was he was salvaging things in the Bermuda Triangle. The storm came in, and he went into this pyramid, and there was this room that was lit up, and he couldn't figure out where the light was coming from, but there was 7 chairs in a circle. One was taller than the other, like the leader, and in the center was a pedestal with holding this crystal, and from the top of the pyramid came a golden rod with a red ruby crystal, and it looked like it was like energy burnt or something. And so he he took this crystal, and Marcel worked with it, incredible energy coming off of it. But it shows that, these sciences of crystal, obviously the people in a circle were focusing on this crystal that was in the center, possibly that was connecting in through the pyramid structure and being amplified. Who knows what they were doing, creating reality.
Reminds me things I've been shown as well by same, it's similar to what you've lived. It's by projection of consciousness. I've been shown these on a planet far, far away. I had no idea where it is. There was this pyramidal, it was called an energy generator pyramid room. It was in a room, pyramidal shape. In the center, there were geometrical patterns on the ground. In the center, there was this huge crystal that resembled, it wasn't faceted and really neatly, but the top was bigger than the bottom. It was like, in the movie Dark Crystal, this kind of crystal shape.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was in the middle, floating in levitation. It was huge, and there were tall beings around it in circles, standing, and they had rods, and they were tapping the ground at the same time, chanting. It was beautiful, vroom, 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 and chanting, and it was, as I could understand, pulsing energy, sound frequency towards, there were all lines coming in the center on the ground. It was like metallic lines, and they were pulsing at one extremity. The other extremity was going under the crystal. Well, not under, but on the way, on these lines, there were also other crystals that were purple and that were they had an inclination, and I'm sure it's the same inclination as the Giza pyramid, I'm sure, now that I think about it. And so it was sending energy to these little smaller crystals, and it was creating like a pulse into the big one, and it was coming up. And
they were pounding in on the ground, right?
Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah. They were coming from out of the floor, out of the ground. So now, what you say about that?
Marcel was very interested in shamanistic drum beating, how it programs the. I actually have a picture here with my limited Photoshop skills. My brother actually stayed with him for 2 weeks, the doctor who got the crystal, and so this is what it looked like. Let's see if we'll past all these things. Oh, here we go. This is a simulation of what it looked like. This is the actual picture of the crystal I took, and it was being held in a pedestal like that.
The crystal from Atlantis?
Yeah, the crystal in Atlantis. This is the actual photograph I took. Also, interestingly enough, remember the Billy Meier's case?
Yeah.
I actually handled the crystal samples that Semjazi, who some think is Maria Orsic.
Yeah.
And we analyzed it in the lab, and we found that it was not made of anything that had a cold fusion process that was not known of on Earth. So I was actually handled these samples back then from the Billy Meiers case. And this is a crystal skull. And this is me back in 1984 doing
I don't see if you
doing a show.
Yeah, I'm not. Are you sharing? I'm not seeing. I was waiting for you to share the screen. Okay, now I see.
My bad.
Now I see.
I forgot to hit the share button.
Okay, you can go to the start quickly to show me the.
Here's the 7 chairs, and this is the crystal sitting in the center. This is a rough simulation. My brother spent 2 weeks with him, and he gave him a detailed description of what the room. This is the actual photograph of the crystal, and here you can see it in being held in hands. This is down in the Bermuda Triangle, and this is the crystal metal samples that I handled working with Marcel, that was given from the Billy Meier case and the Swiss farmer, and the Michael Hedges skull, and this is me back in 1984 talking about working with crystals.
Recommend everyone to watch this video. Yeah. Wow. Wow. So it was a crystal ball. Yeah, interesting. So how would you analyze the device, well, the place I've seen with these crystals coming from the ground? Does that resonate with other technology you came across or you worked on with sound, notably? I don't know.
You mentioned that it had 2 different types of metal wrapped around it.
Yes, it had 2 different types, and so one coil was coming one way and the other coil the other way, but they were all superimposed. There was one coil going that way and another coil on it, over it, going the other way around, and the 2 metals had different colors. It was 2 different metals. One was golden, one was silver.
What's interesting is in 2001, I met with a group of scientists in San Francisco that all had horror stories about how their different inventions. And one of the scientists had a laboratory, was a physicist from Berkeley, that had a crystal that he was able to, it glowed and actually levitated and was able to produce all this power. And the SWAT team came in, cleaned out his laboratory. He's disappeared ever since. And Mark Cummings was his name. And he asked, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing my laboratory? And he says, well, you're trespassing. You know, you're trespassing on the, the status quo of energy and everything like that. But another one of the scientists that were there was Nassim Haramein. He's a well-known theoretical physicist from Switzerland, that he was showing me on his laptop. We were all different scientists that were doing different weird stuff. And he had a video of this energy device that was using geometry, like a half dome, that was powering this 100-watt light bulb. And it compelled me to share the story of the, that I had back in 1977. And he says, yes, that's it. That's the structure of the matrix. So I got a little confirmation. But one of the things that Marcel did was he took and wrapped wire around the crystal, and he pulsed it, and it knocked him on his feet. So much energy came off of it. But the trouble was, I wasn't there during that experiment, but I heard about it. Another interesting experiment was the crystals store patterns of energy, and he was able to work with this winery in Northern California that had this terrible wine, rot gut wine, horrible wine. He was able to take the finished vibration of a high quality wine, store it in the crystal, had 7 right-hand turns of it was a stainless steel tubing, and circulated the wine. And remember I mentioned about the angles in the water where you have like
Yeah.
26 and 104 degrees, and where the information is harmonically transferred from quartz to water and from water to quartz. There's a communication that happens between the two. And he converted thousands of gallons into a California award-winning wine. Now, the trouble is you couldn't say, you know, this has been crystal enhanced, you know. So we were trying to look for money, you know, for the laboratory, you know, for more equipment and stuff like that. So that was one of the interesting things that showed that you can store a vibrational pattern into the crystal, and the water that's in the wine received the information and converted it. And so, you know, there's a whole world of science that that I am personally looking forward to to seeing what happens when finally the dark cabal on this planet is completely alleviated, and we can release these technologies to the world.
Yes.
And what do you think of the world situation right now? Do you think it's going to be a couple of months, a year, 2 years? What's your intuitive sense?
My intuitive sense is that first, things are moving all the time, so you cannot tell a date. People have been telling dates that were right at the time they told these dates, but then things move, you know. You can have a pretty sure vision of a future globally, how it's going to be, but all the little events in between, it's fluctuating. The dates are fluctuating. It depends on, you know, it's cause to effect. We are making it, you know.
The future is not written, it's completely being created.
Created as we go. I've seen the future 100 years from now. I've been shown that through a time looking. It wasn't a looking glass as it's been described. It was another technology, but I've seen 100 years from now. It's fantastic. There are floating cities, anti-gravity cities already. 100 years is nothing. I mean, it's gonna go. You know, science it's exponential. It goes very fast, faster and faster. So in 100 years, I mean, we're gonna go huge, far away in technology because we're going fast. You know, when we're not blocked. I mean, you know, and all the dates in between, it's a bit fluctuating. I cannot tell dates, but I can tell events. You know, that's the thing. I haven't been shown between 100 years and now. So because it's in the making, it's good that we co-create it and we give the impulse and the energy, because if we are told, oh, that date, that is going to happen, you wait and you're not making it happen and it won't happen. You know what I mean? We are meant not to really know exactly, otherwise it spoils it. We're not doing it right. You know, it's like I can read tarots, for instance. I don't do it because I've done it a lot and influenced people too much, you know. But what I know is that we are living the worst at the moment. It's blowing up everywhere. Humanity has woken up, taking back their sovereignty. We're not going backwards. That's it. We've woken up. And I'm not talking about spiritual stuff. I'm talking about human rights, so human sovereignty, 3D stuff, you know, really.
Oh, you could see it everywhere. I feel very optimistic.
Yes, me too. Me too. And we're doing it. It's every transmutation is painful, you know. It's normal. We need we don't know the silver linings of everything that's going on. So we can only make speculations, but let us not stop our life to lose ourselves into arguing into speculations. It's only speculation because no one on this planet knows exactly what's going on.
Of course not. Yeah, we just live day to day.
Yes, so that's the best. And the thing is, yes, what's going to happen? Well, you know, well, when I was talking about we don't know the silver lining exactly, I was thinking about what's happening at the moment, you know, Russian area. We don't know exactly why that is happening, you know, but there are reasons, and it's for the greater good of the future that things are being cleared. I'm not talking about dumps, other things. No, dumps, it's just finishing, it's just, you know, finishing cleansing, but it's something else that's there. I don't know myself. I just know that there is something there that's been cleansed, and it's going to be a lot in a lot of places like this. What needs to what is rotten needs to be extracted and destroyed, you know, from the old corrupted world. And that's what's happening, and it's freaking frightening. You know, and there are people suffering from it, but it's difficult. But at a longer term, what I've seen is a humanity of Earth that gotten rid of the cabal, and that is every country regained their sovereignty, their culture, their identity, and it's the completely reverse of a contrary of from a new world order. It's everybody has its individuality, and we are all federated in a Earth Federation. There's no one at the top, and it's like a circle. It's a sphere, the planet, everyone at equidistance from the center. There's no one ruling it, you know, it's a federation. And I've seen that, and I know it's going to happen, because why I am convinced that is going to keep on happening, this future timeline is still stable. It's because all our friends or our allies in space, they are here. If they thought it was over, they'd be gone. Why bother, you know? And I've been told, if we are here doing all of this, it's because we know and we have hope. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here. And hearing that, I went, yes, how can I not have hope? And I wish I
It's
could
not
give
baseless hope. It's
humanity my
based on
enthusiasm.
knowledge. Yes.
So
Yeah,
that's
what you
I know.
do is so important, because you give knowledge, you know, because the dark elements can only work with secrecy. And when you shine the light on the truth and show what is going on, you are educating the public about this reality. And only through the awareness of this, the awareness is what brings the hope. Because honestly, before I understood more than I did a few years ago, I didn't have any hope, but I have great hope now. And can I share one more thing on crystals?
Oh, please. Oh, absolutely.
Oh, Marcel always used to say to me that the sciences that we know with crystals, I have a better example than this. Bear with me one moment here. The science we know with crystals is akin to those we know in normal physics. And here we go. Here's an example. Now I'm a broadcast engineer. I haven't activated it yet.
Okay.
Let's see.
Sorry.
Here we go. I'm a broadcast engineer, so I'm very familiar with electromagnetic broadcasts. Now, when you have this is the HARP operation up in Alaska that broadcasts a signal. And these are different wavelengths. This is a longer wavelength, this is a shorter wavelength, and this is even a shorter wavelength. Now, this is what's called a phased array, where you have an antenna, and then you have the identical antenna, but spaced in such a way that it is in a wavelength multiple, so that each antenna that you adds like 3 decibel gain. And so by the time you get done with all these antennas, you have an enormous amount of power that's being broadcast. Now, what is a crystal? A crystal is a phased array in a way. And so when you think about the matrix that we're in, the matrix that we're in is this hexagonal matrix. And so if you take, we could do some white magic here.
Let's do white magic.
Now the crystal, since it has any crystal, it doesn't have to be a special cut Vogel crystal. You can use any kind of little crystal, little dollar crystal or whatever. It has the matrix within it. And when your consciousness, it's like you have plugged your, imagine it, plugging yourself into a giant antenna. You are connecting into the matrix that we're all in, and it amplifies. And I've had a lot of interesting experiences of manifesting things by, going into the crystal and seeing it, because it amplifies it and it brings it in from the higher dimension into the lower dimension into a more rapid method. And so what I'd like to do is just imagine the most benevolent outcome for planet Terra, and see it as being here now, and feel it in your heart, see it in your mind, and give a great breath, and pulse it in, and then know it is so, and don't give it another thought. Like the Rosicrucians say, they pretend like you're putting it in the mailbox, and you know that the mailman's going to deliver it, and you don't give it a second thought. You know it's manifested.
Yeah.
I like the way you do it much better. You do it more complete. Of course, it's always a matter of how much effort you think it takes.
Yeah. Oh, when I visualize something, I put all my soul and being into it. I'm just it.
Oh, I felt that. Yeah.
Did you? One day, it's funny. One day, I was doing a Q&A and I was asked about the light language, and I said, light language, it's not a proper language. You can put sound on it, but it's something invisible and inaudible, and it's just frequency. And I showed people. I said, for fun, I'm going to send it to my laptop camera and see if you receive it. Oh my God. Many people did receive that. And I was visualizing images, sending it by this projection of consciousness to like my camera. And people describe, they saw what I was projecting. The pictures. I was, what? That's amazing. I love that when it happens.
Well, crystal magnifies it even more.
Yeah. So, wow, thank you. That is what I like, that because it's really proper science. It's physics. It's concrete. Like proper.
It's science. It's science of the future. That's what I loved about Marcel, was that he wasn't into well, he's a little woo-woo in some ways, but he was quantifying it in a laboratory, and he was the only person that was doing it. A lot of people were dancing in the moonlight naked with the crystals and using salt and different things that they feel they need to do. But he was able to measure it, actually measure the the effects, and and that's important for some people. They need to have that. They need to be shown the science part. Shamans such as yourself, you already know the truth about it. But some people need to see the laboratory work.
Yes. But shamanism it's like an ancient science in a way, because it's really, it's not being
Very
a shaman.
ancient.
Being a shaman, it's not buying a drum, banging it. No, stop that. It's really a proper training where you learn about sound, frequency, sound beats. So you start by the beat of the heart, the heartbeat, and you double it or quadruple it, regarding to how far you want to project your consciousness. So to project your consciousness, you're going to, you double the heartbeat, and then you go on fourth, and it's quite physical, you need to, and then you are put in different brain waves where you can project your consciousness. Always set an intention before, because you're going to ride your intention. Your intention will be the pathway, otherwise you lose yourself. Always create intention where you want to connect before. So, and then you connect to your target, whatever you want to do there with it. And then to go back, you need to be skilled already to keep on beating the drum, the body, while you're there. Or normally it's someone else who does it for you. And then you go to 8 beats, you multiply by 8.
Increase
to bring
the
you
frequency.
back. To bring you back. And that's what you learn. And that's really the ancients, they knew that. But it was really primary,
Yes.
Reminds me that. So, wow, I'm very impressed. We use the breath also in shamanism to project energy from a body to another. When we do soul retrieval, by the breath, we send back the piece of the soul into different chakras of the body. It's by the breath. It's
yes. Yeah, breath, intention, it's all key. We're such creative beings, that we Like that experience I had looking in between the pulses of creation. It's so illusionary world in a way. And as we resonate with our soul purpose, our intention aligns with that, and we do the work that we do. And we want to see, not want, we are seeing a world that is transformed, and it's in the process. It's in the process.
Yes, yes.
But we know it's possible. That's what's important. People need to know, and that's the only reason I come out and share my little story along with hundreds of other witnesses that are all sharing their story, attempting to awaken the public.
Yes.
That their perceptions have been manipulated to hide these truths, and that we have an incredible, beautiful world about to unfold.
And as you were explaining, I totally agree. And you were explaining about the technology of the medbeds to manifest or find a hologram, a different hologram, and embed this hologram into the altered or wounded body of someone. The body is going to reattune to the new hologram, which signal will pulse stronger than the former one. So it will like mimic it. But when you think that we can create holograms with our mind by visualizing what the exercise you showed me with visualizing the future and putting it in the crystal, that's it. That's the same thing, isn't it? That's the same thing.
Yes.
We have the
amplified
power to create the reality we want, not by embedding it maybe in crystal, but in the world, the planet, the town where you live. You want to see your town with more futuristic buildings. Just imagine them and superimpose them to the existing buildings. An example. What do you think?
We're each a fractal of a large mind, and we are each creating. And you can't, it's all holographic. And so, as you know, you can't change any part of a hologram without affecting all of the hologram.
Yes.
And so don't ever doubt that your thoughts and your visions are having no effect, because they are having an effect.
So powerful. So Dan, really, thank you. Yeah, it's we have the power to create the reality we want. We actually really do have this power.
Yeah, look at masters. They can materialize an apple by their clear visualization, or they can reform their bodies, like the nine, they create any shaped body that they want, because they are so connected to their source that whatever they think is.
Yes.
And we're in the process of continually connecting to our higher aspects, and we're moving there rapidly. We're catching up.
We are. Listen, Dan, it's been 2 amazing hours. Is there any last word? I always ask my guest, what is your advice and guidance for humanity in these times of change? What are your words, please?
Well, I think everybody that watches your channel is pretty much aware, and you know the power within you to envision the world that you want to see. Do it in every action that you take. Not only inner work, but in the actions that you take in your world. I just have a lot of gratitude for what you're doing, and thank you so much for bring to the world this information that they have no other way of accessing what's going on in our solar system. It's so liberating to know that these things are going on, and that such hope for our world is on the very near horizon, and that all these challenges on Terra are all going to dissipate at some point, and then it's going to be like a snowball effect of exponentially, where the waking process is going to just magnify so much that children in the future will look back at these times and think about the people of Terra and how they overcame these challenges and the beautiful world that is now created. And they will be grateful to people such as yourself and
yourself.
that help usher in that beautiful new world.
Yes, we are the forefathers and the foremothers of the humanity of tomorrow, and we have a job to do. Thank you.
We're not done yet.
No. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Dan.
Such a pleasure, Elena. And I look forward to hearing more good news.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for everything.